USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com. An in-depth look at this week's top college hockey matchup and a preview of the other big games.
Welcome to the Game of the Week podcast for Thursday, November 21st, 2019. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. It's been a bit of a drought up at Maine, but the Black Bears are off to a good start, and they take things on the road this weekend against Northeastern. Friday is our Game of the Week.
Joining us to talk about this week's Game of the Week, the beat writer from the Bangor Daily News. He's also the radio voice, does color alongside John Shields on the Maine home games. That's Larry Mahoney. Larry, good to talk to you. And it's a pretty good time to talk because this Maine team seems to be playing some very good hockey.
Yeah, they really have. They've surprised us, especially, with so many young defensemen. They lost 5 of the 7 regular defensemen from last year, 3 to graduation, 2 to early pro signings. And that was a big question mark. And it certainly wasn't answered in the first game when they played Providence, a team that had lost 5 of its top 6 scorers from a year ago, and Providence beat them 7-0 and unleashed 59 shots on goal. And then the next night they played an exhibition game up here and got beat by New Brunswick, defending Canadian national champs 5-0. So people were saying, "Well, here we are. Let's hunker down. This is going to be a long winter. Maybe we should look for other activities to do this winter." And then they had the sweep of Anchorage and split at Quinnipiac, and they just started playing to their identity. And last weekend they drew almost 4,900 for the New Hampshire series, 48-75. So I mean, it was rocking again. It was like the old times at Alfond Arena.
Yeah, that's actually where I wanted to go before we even get into the team. The fans up there have, I guess, sometimes people know, attendance kind of goes as the team goes. And if you're winning, that can help. But that was always the toughest environment in Hockey East. And I think that, some lack of success has probably tempered that a bit. But it did feel, watching some of the highlights from last week, that the atmosphere had returned to Alfond that we knew through the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, it did. It was a terrific, it was just an electric environment. By the same token, Jim and Ed, I have to point out that the 2 games against Anchorage, neither one drew 3,000. I can't remember the last time Maine had 2 home games in a season with less than 3,000 people in the building. Now, as you probably know, or I'm not sure, but they lowered the ticket prices this year. I mean, it was a gamble on behalf of Ken Ralph, the new AD. He said, "Look, we got to put people in the seats. This could backfire if we don't get more people, because now we've slashed prices, so we're going to lose money that way." So they slashed the ticket prices, and again, the way there is some excitement, but you've heard the term cautiously optimistic. I would say Maine fans are cautiously excited. I mean, they've had other patches. This is Red Gendron's 7th year. They've had other stretches where there was hope that this would get turned around, and it did. It just went south. This team hasn't. This team in an 18-year span went to the Frozen Four 11 times. In an 18-year span, they haven't been to the Final Four of Hockey East in 7 years. Their last Frozen Four appearance was 2006, 2007. So the point I'm trying to make is that people are, they haven't started building the floats for the parade through Orno yet with the national championship. There's still a lot of skeptics, and I'm one of them. Has this team overachieved till now? Yes, but they play the next 7 on the road, including 2 at Northeastern this weekend, 2 at UMass, and a couple weeks after they go to St. Lawrence for a pair. I mean, it's a wait and see. Let's see how this plays out. It's a real funky schedule because they play 7 in a row at home in January and February. I don't know what the schedule makers were thinking. I just think it's kind of an odd schedule where you play 7 on the road and then 7 at home. But anyway, we'll see what they're made of. I mean, they're playing Northeastern this weekend. Lost 6 in a row to the Huskies, 2-13 in the last 15 games, including 4 overtime losses. So, the Huskies have had their number of late. This will be a good indicator to see where they are.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this, and we got there a little earlier than I thought we might. It is the 7th year for Red Gendron, and the playoff berths haven't been there, and even a record that hasn't matched where Tim Whitehead was during his long tenure. Is there pressure on Red Gendron in that position? Is that something that he's feeling, and that maybe the athletic department and the fans are feeling at this point?
I'm not sure he's feeling it, but I think it's something that should be felt. I mean, this is his. He's got 2 years left, this year and next year, on his contract, $205,000 a year. I think he'll be in trouble if they don't get to the semifinals this year. I think they're going to have to do some soul searching, because it is the flagship program of the state the state and the university. I mean, it's the only Division I school in the state. Hockey's won 2 national championships. They're a big income producer as far as stands and concessions and things like that. And I can't believe if they stumble again. I mean, I don't know why you would bring back a coach as a lame duck, knowing you were probably going to get rid of him after next year to save the $205,000. I mean, I think they would probably, and then Ken Ralph, the athletic director, he's got a strong college hockey background at Colorado College and RPI. So I mean, we'll wait and see. I mean, this certainly is helping Red right now. This is his best start in his 7 years. And we'll see if they can continue to build on it. If so, we'll see what happens. But again, this year, next year, the final 2 years on his contract, and he did get an extension a couple of years ago. But I mean, people are impatient. I mean, they're waiting for something to happen. And last year, he did finish above 500 in Hockey East. But when you're used to going to Frozen Fours and you can't even make it to the Final Four or the semifinals of Hockey East, I mean, the program loses relevance, and they can't afford that up here.
We're talking with Larry Mahoney from the Bangor Daily News, and let's get a little bit into what makes this team tick and some of the players. Obviously, it goes without saying the back end seems to be their most important, and Jeremy Swayman, what he has become in a goaltender, his consistency, his ability to get things done. It feels like, we talk about the need to win this year. It feels like this could be a need to win because the odds of him staying around for his senior season probably aren't that high, knowing that he's the Bruins draft pick. But when you look at Swayman, how much has his stability on the back end helped this team?
It's been huge. It's been a primary ingredient. It's a numero uno. It has been the key to their progression this year. And what he has done, Jim and Ed, is he's minimized his movement. Last year he had spurts where he was very good, but he had 17 games where he allowed 2 goals or less, 18 with 3 or more. He was too active. He was too busy back there. And what that meant is, he might make the first save, but then because he was so active, he wasn't in position to make a second or a third save. This year, he's minimized his movement so that he's square to the shooters. He's making the initial save. He's really become real good with his stick, sweeping rebounds to the corners. That's been a real improvement. But then he's in position to make second and third saves. To his credit, he's done so when he's had to. But the team has done a pretty good job in front of him in that. We call it the imaginary third circle, which is between the 2 face-off dots in the defensive zone, and they've done a good job there. He's been able to see the puck. He's making saves. He's retaining his balance and in position to make second and third saves. And again, when you have a 1.90 goals against average and a .946 save percentage, that's going to win a lot of hockey games.
Up front, there's been some goal scoring, and that's a good thing. Tim Doherty with 6, Edwards Trailmarks with 7, Jacob Smith-Festra 7. But other than that, it's 1 goal, 2 goals here for a couple of different players. Not a ton of different guys chipping in here on the offensive side. Do they need to maybe find a little bit more depth offensively to get that goal scoring?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, there's no question there. They went into the New Hampshire series. 5 of their 12 forwards in the Friday night game against New Hampshire hadn't scored a goal. So that's almost half your lineup hasn't scored a goal. AJ Drobot, freshman, got his first goal on. It was just a flip in that he got his stick on at the blue line and was completely mishandled. By Mike Robinson of New Hampshire. That turned that game around. They need supplemental scoring because. Down the stretch, especially when you're on the road and teams can put home teams get the last line change. They can put their best defensive forwards on Maine's top line. Of course, their top line is Doherty with Fossier and Trailmax. There's your top three scorers on the team right now. But again, Schmidt-Bestrup, 7 goals, off to a great start. Adam Dawes got a couple, but like we said, I mean, Patrick Shea broke through for his first goal, game winner. So it's the Patrick Sheas of the world. It's players like that. Ben Poisson, who at times he's got a goal. He's a freshman. He's a really good player. Ryan Smith hasn't scored yet. He's a senior. You need players like this to start chipping in and start scoring goals, because you need to get a couple goals from your third line here and there, and the fourth line to chip in every once in a while too. You need balance. I mean, if you look at most teams that win national championships, they always have 2 or 3 studs, but then they'll get 7 or 8 goals from someone on the third line, and that's what Maine needs. They need some supplemental scoring, and that's something that we'll be keeping a close eye on. They've got some points from their defensemen too. J.D. Greenway, Wisconsin transfer, he's got 5 points. Adrian Bisson, who's a freshman defenseman's got 4. So they're getting some help from the defense, but they really do need. That's a good point, guys. They do need supplemental scoring. They do need to get something out of the third and fourth lines from time to time.
Before I let you go, Larry, the one thing I noticed seeing the Maine a couple of weeks ago against Lowell, heavy team. They like to play heavy. They like to lean on you. They like to play in the corners. I guess Lowell kind of fits into that, and that I think was a good match for them. Yep. UNH fits into that in some certain ways. Northeastern, they feel like more of a speed team, a finesse team. How does the heaviness of Maine maybe match up against a faster, quicker team like a Northeastern? Well, a lot of it's going to be determined on Maine's effective the way Maine enters the offensive zone. They've got to make smart dump-ins. Again, it's a wider rink than Alphonse Arena. Maine has got to be able to get in on their defense. They've got to, again, whether they carry it in and protect it, they've got to get the puck deep. That's their identity. And it's going to be a little more difficult there. But by the same token, that's how they have to play. Now, they have some speed. Maine does have some speed, but they're more of a heavy forecheck team. Northeastern played on the bigger sheet, more of a speed team, with also some grinders. But I mean, one of the keys for Maine is they've got to find a way to neutralize Tyler Mann. Tyler Mann's one of the best players, if not one of the best players in the country, and he's a game changer. And he's somebody that they are going to have to make sure they know where he is at all times. They're going to have to take the body on him. They're going to have to try to wear him out and get in on their defense. Their defense, they lost Davies, they lost some key players on the blue line. So again, Maine is going to need to frustrate Northeastern, and they're going to have to protect the puck well, because with most teams that play on the Olympic-size sheets, they're very good in transition because they're quick. And if you don't protect the puck and you turn it over in the neutral zone, it's going to be a 2-on-1 or a breakaway. So they've got to manage the puck well, and they've got to try to, again, make smart dump-ins or carry it in and just get in deep and get in and grind on Northeastern's defensemen and keep the puck in their zone, cycle a puck, get to the net front. Again, the goaltender, Kate Primo, stole that series last year, made 72 saves in the 2 wins, the 2-1 wins in the quarterfinals against Maine. And he's gone. And, Maine's feels now, even though, the kid playing for Northeastern has played pretty well. They've been a funny team, though. They've been up and down. I mean, they've had some very good wins, and then they've lost some games you wouldn't expect them to lose. So it's going to be an interesting series. I think it is going to be one of the marquee series of the weekend. Well, it certainly will be. It'll be a great test for the Maine Black Bears.
Very much so.
Larry Mahoney, Bangor Daily News. He's also a radio voice on the Maine home games. We always appreciate being able to chat with you. You are one of the great hockey minds that's been around here. There's not a lot that can say that they've been around longer than Ed and I, but I think you have. So that's actually a feather in the cap, not a bad thing.
I've been covering it since they started in 77, 78. I had 2 years off when I was doing basketball, but all it means is I'm old. It means that I'm old and decrepit, and it means that I get 5% off when I go to Dunkin' Donuts.
I think that's a good thing. Hey, Larry, thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the season. We'll catch up with you down the line, I'm sure.
Oh, always a pleasure, Jim. And thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
That's Larry Mahoney from the Bangor Daily News. We'll be back with more of the Game of the Week podcast in a moment.
This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online.
This is the Game of the Week podcast from USCHO. Jim, let's start out with the Game of the Week. Maine has an unbeaten record at home, not as good on the road. They're heading in to take on a tough Northeastern team, number 13 this week at Matthews Arena.
Yeah, certainly the road has been one of the biggest challenges for the Black Bears under Red Gendron. I mean, they went an entire season without a road win under Gendron. So this becomes a big challenge. They have not been the best road team out there, but they're playing good hockey. And, I think that if they can use their size and they can use just their heaviness overall, leaning on Northeastern players, making ice really competitive, finding their own offense in some sort of way. I don't think this is an overly creative offensive team, but they do find goals. And if they're able to do that, they'll make this a nightmare for Northeastern on their home ice. Northeastern has lacked consistency, and that, talking to Jim Madigan this week, the one thing he really cried about was consistency. We need more consistency. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of skill, a lot of speed. They're going to try to find a way to match, I think, some of the heaviness of Maine this weekend. But this is really two different style teams playing against each other. I always love when that happens to see which wins out. Is it going to be the speed and skill, or is it going to be more of the heavy, gritty work that Maine puts forward?
Ohio State has had a weekend off to kind of regroup after two close losses on the road at Notre Dame in the Big Ten. They travel again this week, and they are going to be against the high-flying offense of Penn State. It's number 11 against number 6.
Should be a great matchup, and I'll tell you, if you're Penn State, don't sleep on this Ohio State team. We know how talented they are, and we know how hungry they should be coming off of those two losses, then the bye week. And so they've been kind of stirring and marinating those losses in their mind. So usually can say that you're going to play with a little desperation. I think you'll see that from Ohio State this week. Penn State, we know what they bring. We know that they bring the offense. We know that they can score goals. Ironically, their two losses this year, they've come when they've been shut out. So I don't say that you have to shut out Penn State to beat them. It certainly helps. You're not going to lose too many games when you have a shutout. But at the same time, you've got to find a way just to slow them down. I think that's something that Ohio State is good at. They know how to slow the game down a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see exactly how much of a defensive battle they can make this become.
Number 3, Notre Dame travels to Michigan State. Danton Cole's Spartans had the rivalry sweep last weekend, home and home, against Michigan.
I think that's a great little sweep for Michigan State, just to get their confidence going. And they're going to play a Notre Dame team that's excellent. There's no two ways about it. They have a lot of skill at every position, top to bottom. But they're on their home ice, and that can be a difference maker. I think of that arena as one of the best, in terms of size and space and the atmosphere you can create in there. It's a great little venue. I think it's one of the more underranked arenas in terms of creating a great atmosphere. So I think we'll enjoy that. That'll be a very enjoyable series. I think Michigan State, if they were to split that series, they'd probably consider that successful. I know they'd love to win both, but you could get a split against Notre Dame. That would be one to take and put in your pocket.
Let's turn to the NCHC. Western Michigan was flying right out of the gate, had some stumbles, and now seems to have regrouped. They're ranked at number 20 this week. They head in to take on a number 4 Denver team that gave up 5 out of 6 points last weekend to North Dakota.
You want to talk about desperation? I think both of these teams need to play a little bit desperate. Obviously, Denver, they had a great start, 8-0 right out of the gate. Everything's going well, number 1 in the country. A little bit of a slip. They're going to want to play tough this weekend, and they would, at home, they're probably going to come out pretty quick and desperate. But Western, at the same time, they're trying to make sure that they can, keep things going, right the ship after, a loss to Omaha last week on Saturday night where they gave up 6 goals. I think that there's a lot of potential for this Western Michigan team, but it's almost like going back to what I talked about Northeastern. Just the need for consistency is always one of those things. And we're at the point in the season that coaches are learning whether or not their team is consistent enough.
Well, a team that you want to talk about desperation, a team that really needs to have some intensity and maybe a little urgency is St. Cloud State. Brett Larson's squad is coming into this weekend 0-2 in conference, 2-4-4 overall. They got swept at home last weekend by Colorado College. Now they have to head to Engelstad Arena to take on a surging number 5 North Dakota Fighting Hawks.
Yeah, and this is a big test for St. Cloud. Obviously, they did not want to get swept at home. This is a team that didn't lose a lot of home games for a good amount of time. So losing twice, that's very painful for them. Now they're going to head into a real tough environment. But you hear coaches sometimes talk about how the road can sometimes be a good thing for their players. They can get away from the distractions. You don't have girlfriends asking for tickets. You don't have, parents maybe, in town or something like that, or, feeling the need to, maybe, be a host as much as you when you're on the road. You're just in your hotel room and maybe you have some family in town, but it's not the same type of thing as if it's on your campus. So coaches like to sometimes get away from home and just, get away from some of the distractions. I think that's what St. Cloud State probably has to be talking about right now. They need to find a way to get mentally prepared to go into a tough environment, play a very good team, play a hot team. Because they need these wins. They need to find a way to right the ship very soon.
A couple other games of note around college hockey. Quinnipiac at Cornell. Quinnipiac 2-3-1 in their last 6 games, including a 7-2 drubbing at the hands of Harvard. Meanwhile, Cornell off to a perfect 6-0 start.
Yeah, this is a good test for Quinnipiac. Obviously, they righted the ship a little bit last weekend with 2 good wins, but they had a tie at Dartmouth. Otherwise, it was 2 losses at Arizona State, a loss at Harvard, as you mentioned, a 7-2 loss at Harvard. So that's kind of uncharacteristic for Rand Pecknold teams. They can lose games, but you don't see them get blown out very often. So this is a good test. Going on the road, you've got this game. It's going to start out your weekend. This is your Friday game in the ECAC. And they're going to have to prove that they have kind of that capacity, that they can be the tough team to play, that they know. I mean, they know what they are. This is a team that I think started the year 8 or 9 nationally in the poll, and they've slowly slipped, and they're not in it. Cornell, on the other hand, they're really trying to get to number 1 because they're right there. They're on the cusp, and 2 wins this weekend could go a long way for them.
An interesting matchup in Atlantic hockey. Robert Morris, the surprise team in that league so far this season. They've got a 3-point lead over Sacred Heart, a 7-point lead over third place RIT. They host Air Force for the weekend. Frank Serratori was the head coach when Derek Schooley was assistant coach at Air Force, and Serratori coached Schooley in juniors. So that's always fun when those 2 teams get together. But this Robert Morris team is surprising a lot of people. Yeah,
well, they are. And, Kaffelmaster and Ned is a big part of that, a graduate transfer who's played very well out of the gates. At the same time, you look over at, Air Force, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They get a good sweep against Bentley last weekend, but they put up a lot of shots and not always a lot of goals, and they're going to need to find that efficiency in their offense. I like Robert Morris a lot. Everything they seem to be doing can work, and when they get going, their offense can score. Their defense is pretty good. Their goaltending's elite. This is a very good team. So for them, I think that this is a test. They're going to have Air Force at home on their home ice. They need to pull these 2 wins out if they want to, kind of prove that they're not just a good team, that they can be a dominant team in Atlantic hockey.
Well, that's going to do it for the Game of the Week podcast. It's one of 3 podcasts here at USCHO.com. Earlier this week, we had USCHO Spotlight with Harvard head coach Ted Donato. And after the weekend on Monday morning, you can check out Weekend Review as we look back at this upcoming weekend of games. You can find all of that at uscho.com/podcasts. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Game of the Week podcast, a production of US College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.